Good morning, I'm Amar Singh Pradhan. Let's begin with the top stories this hour. Prime Minister admits the government's failure to live up to the public expectations, pledges not to repeat the drawbacks sown through the progress details. Civil Service Commission concerned by the government's attempt to create additional temporary postings for the staffers terms the procedures unconstitutional. French President Emmanuel Macron lashes out at demonstrators who clashed with police in Paris during the latest protests sparked by rising fuel prices. And Chelsea suffered their first loss at the English Premier League, going down to Tottenham. Barcelona and Atletico Madrid settled for a 1-1 draw. Let's begin with national political updates. After collecting progress details of all the ministries for the past 3 days, Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli has expressed dissatisfied over the ministry's performance. Premier Oli has directed ministers to improve their working modality and enhance inter-ministerial coordination. The Prime Minister collected the ministry's progress details since the start of the current fiscal year from the departmental secretaries. He has, however, been disappointed by the outcome. The Premier has indicated procedural weaknesses as the biggest hurdle in any development project. Prime Minister Oli also expressed dissatisfaction, citing the lack of economical approach in public expenses, government staff being more inclined towards foreign tours and significant amount of money being spent on different headings lacking clear objectives. The Prime Minister has also pledged to do away with the tendency of collecting undue allowance by mentioning extra hours. Prime Minister Oli stressed on the need of curbing expenditures when it comes to purchasing government vehicles and uses of fuel. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has directed the concerned ministries to table the bills on the disputed laws before the winter session of the Parliament begins. Prime Minister Oli, who's used to blatantly deny any wrongdoing whenever confronted by the public apathy, has this time admitted the government's inability to live up to the people's expectations. Experts are of the view that the Prime Minister's success and the government's effectiveness would, however, entirely depend on the strategy that will be able to do away with all such government's drawbacks. The government has sanctioned the appointments of 46,000 staff at the federal level, most of whom, however, have been rendered without any responsibility. At a time the existing staff themselves are jobless, the government has started recruiting new staff by creating temporary postings at 4 different ministries. The Civil Service Commission has, however, expressed its dissatisfaction, citing that the government did not even consult with it before determining the appointments. The federal government has failed to deploy staff who are currently at the center at the provincial and local levels. The number of staff significantly exceeds the postings created by the government. The government has still created additional postings in the pretext of expediting works related to agriculture development, energy infrastructures and labor ministries. The number of the additional postings has, however, not been revealed. As per the constitutional provision, the government is not allowed to make additional appointments without the permission of the Civil Service Commission. The permanent postings should be created in case of the shortage of staff at ministries. The government, however, has clearly violated the provision, as the Commission has stated that the staff under the waiting list of the Commission should be hired in case of less than 6 months of appointment. The provision is not only against the norms of good governance, but is also likely to add unreasonable burden to the state coffers. And time now for a short break. For more news, do stay with us. Welcome back. The intra-party dispute within the ruling Nepal Communist Party has intensified, with the sole authority given to the Secretariat for making all important decisions. Although the recent meetings of the party secretariat were focused on bringing inter-party unity into conclusion, dissatisfaction has reached the party's lowest ranks for making the standing committee and the central committee inactive. The central members close to senior leader Madhakumar Nepal submitted a memorandum to General Secretary Bishnu Paudel yesterday afternoon, calling for the central committee meeting at the earliest. They have cited the leadership of running the party in a prejudiced manner and the consequent weakening of relations between the government and the party as the reasons. The party has not yet held a central committee meeting since the unification other than secretarial and standing committee meetings. The party's secretariat has been taking all the important decisions due to the same reason. At a time, the ruling party is also yet to finalize unification up to the lower level. The dissatisfied faction has not further enraged due to the entire decision-making authority being given to the secretariat alone. The disgruntled faction has also alleged the leadership of miscalculating the value of party organization and regular meetings of the party committees, although it being the backbone of any communist party. The faction has also accused the leadership of going against the spirit of the party's unification manifesto, which has emphasized the issue of joint leadership. Experts are of the view that the effect of the party's internal mismanagement has been reflected on the government's performance. And moving on, it has been 8 months since the government paved way for commercial banks to bring in foreign loans. However, as many as 27 commercial banks other than NMB Bank have not been able to acquire loans from the foreign banks during the period. This has rendered the central bank's scheme to do away with the current liquidity crisis almost a failure. The commercial banks had undergone a liquidity crisis during the last fiscal year as well. The Nepal Rashtra Bank then allowed the banks to bring in foreign loans in US dollars since the 3rd of April 2018, aimed at sorting out the scarcity. The financial policy of the current fiscal year has provisioned the commercial banks and financial institutions the right to acquire loans from foreign banks also in Indian currency. However, none of the banks could bring in foreign loans except for the $15 million brought in by NMB Bank during the past 8 months. Other commercial banks have attributed the lack of trust of foreign banks for their failure to bring in the loans. One of the reasons that the foreign banks could not trust the banks in country is because of the lack of credit rating by the government. The budget of the current fiscal year has envisaged expediting the flow of foreign loans and investment. The provision, however, has yet to be implemented. Another reason that the foreign banks have remained hesitant to invest in the country is due to their perception of risk in terms of genuine return. Even the banks in the neighboring country, India, have not been able to trust the Nepalese banks for development loans. In this context, it's crucial for the government to disseminate messages to the international community that there has been forced investment atmosphere in the country with steady progress in terms of political stability. And we have more news coming up, but right now it's time for another short break. The one and only sports ground established during the era of Rana regime, located in the headquarters of Dhankuta, has been closed for repair works. Different outdoor sporting competitions and practices have been adversely affected for the last 6 months due to the same reason. And in this context, we had asked the locals related to the sporting fraternity in Dhankuta, how has the practices and competitions been affected in the absence of alternative sports ground and infrastructure. Let's take a look at what they have to say.
Public voice.
Philippines एउटा सानो ग्राउन्ड छ यता करिमडाँडा सानो ग्राउन्ड त्यो सानो ग्राउन्डमा चाहिँ प्र्याक्टिस गरिरहेको त्यहाँ घाँस नभएको रातो माटोमा प्र्याक्टिस गरिरहेको त्यो अभाव यो ग्राउन्डको वैकल्पिक मैदान नभएको कारणले गर्दा खेलाडीलाई अलिक असहज भइरहेको जस्तो अवस्था लागिरहेछ
सबैजना त्यसैमा आउने सानो ग्राउन्ड त्यही माथि अनि हामीले चाहिँ प्रपर ट्रेनिङै गर्नु पाउँदैन अनि अब टुर्नामेन्टहरु भइरहन्छ त्यसमा चाहिँ हामीले राम्रो हुनै दिन सक्दैन का अनि त्यही भएर मलाई चाहिँ यहाँनेरि एउटा वैकल्पिक हैन अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय मापदण्ड भएको एउटा ठुलो ग्राउन्ड भइदिएदेखि हामी प्लेयरलाई पनि ट्रेनिङ गर्नु सहज हुन्छ
त्यहाँ खाल्टाखुल्टी छन् अब धेरै इन्जर्ड हुने चान्सेस छन् त्यहाँ
फुटबल भनेको स्ट्यान्डर्ड साइज भनेको 11 साइडको हुन्छ अब त्यहाँ माथि चुलीवनमा 8 साइडको छ यतापटि 7 साइडको छ अब भोलिको दिनमा हामीलाई 11 साइडमा आएर खेल्नु पनि गाह्रो हुन्छ क्या अब गेम प्ले फरक हुन्छ फुटबलै भए पनि त्यसले गर्दाखेरि वैकल्पिक ग्राउन्ड चाहिएको छ
पपुलेसन पनि त्यति धेरै थिएन र बस्ती बाक्लो थिएन खेलाडी संख्या पनि कम थियो त्यो समयसम्म यो ग्राउन्ड ठीक थियो तर अहिले अब खेलाडीको चापहरु बढेको हुनाले वैकल्पिक ग्राउन्डको आवश्यकता एकदम अत्यन्त जरुरी छ
प्र्याक्टिस नभइरहेको अनि एउटा सानो ग्राउन्डमा खेल्नु परिरहेको
अब अर्को यसको अब अल्टरनेटिभ ग्राउन्डै नभएर यहाँ चाहिँ अलिकति खेलाडीहरूलाई मार परिरहेछ।
And it's now time for our segment Public Pulse, where it texts us with their opinion.
Public Pulse.
And the question is, why has the government created temporary postings at different ministries? Our options are A, to expedite development works, and B, merely to appoint staff. The voting for the question is on. Type any WS, select your option A or B and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. And now time for sports update.
Sports news.
Chelsea suffered their first loss at the English Premier League after suffering a 3-1 defeat against Tottenham Hotspurs. In the match played at Tottenham's home ground last night, Dele Alli gave Tottenham an early lead by scoring in the 8th minute. Chelsea were down 2-0 by the 16th minute after Harry Kane doubled Tottenham's lead. Heung-min Son scored in the 54th minute to extend Tottenham's lead further. Oliver Giroud scored a consolation goal for Chelsea in the 85th minute to reduce the deficit to 3-1. In another English Premier League match played last night, league leaders Manchester City continued their unbeaten run by thrashing host West Ham 4-0. Manchester City took an early lead after David Silva scored in the 11th minute. Raheem Sterling then scored in the 19th minute, while Leroy Sané scored in the 34th minute as Manchester City went into halftime with a 3-0 lead. Sané scored his second goal of the match in injury time to seal Manchester City's 4-0 drubbing over West Ham. In another EPL match played last night, Liverpool blanked Watford 3-0. After a goalless first half, Mohamed Salah scored in the 67th minute, Trent Alexander-Arnold scored in the 76th minute, and Roberto Firmino scored in the 89th minute to seal Liverpool's 3-0 win over Watford. Liverpool were down to 10 men after Jordan Henderson received a red card in the 82nd minute. In other EPL matches played yesterday, Manchester United and Crystal Palace settled for a goalless draw. Fulham defeated Southampton 3-2. Everton aced Cardiff City 1-0, and Brighton and Leicester City were locked in a 1-1 draw. Barcelona and Atletico Madrid settled for a 1-1 draw in a match played last night under Spanish La Liga. In a lackluster match played at Atletico's home ground, both the teams failed to make threatening moves as the first half ended goalless. Diego Costa broke the deadlock in the 77th minute, utilizing a pass from Antoine Griezmann. Substitute Ousmane Dembele, who had entered the field in the 80th minute, rescued the Catalans in the dying minutes of the match. Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez failed to convert their chances in a match that had 70% possession by Barcelona, who still lead the point table with 25 points from 13 matches. Atletico is placed second with 24 points. Early yesterday, Eibar had stunned Real Madrid 3-0 to end their string of 4 consecutive wins since the arrival of the new coach Scolari. And back home, Himalayan Sherpa has maintained its winning streak in the ongoing Saiti Smarak A Division League, while Saraswati Youth Club has secured its first victory. Himalayan Sherpa continued its dominance against Jolakil from the beginning of the match played at the ground of Armed Police Force in Halchok yesterday, registering a 2-1 win. Colonel Limbu scored in the 66th and 75th minute to script Himalayan's victory. An own goal provided relief to Jolakil in the 86th minute of the match, bringing the scoreline to 2-1. Jolakil, however, missed a chance to score in the final minutes to surrender the match to the Sherpa boys. Himalayan Sherpa is now in the 4th spot of the league with 7 points. Likewise, Saraswati Youth Club defeated Friends Club 3-0 in another match played yesterday afternoon.
Jersey number 50, Marcus Hamal is replaced by jersey number 17, Suman Bangalore.
And before we wrap up, here's a look at the top stories one more time. Prime Minister admits the government's failure to live up to the public expectations, pledges not to repeat the drawbacks sown through the progress details. Civil Service Commission concerned by the government's attempt to create additional temporary postings for the staffers terms the procedure unconstitutional. French President Emmanuel Macron lashes out at demonstrators who clashed with police in Paris during the latest protest sparked by rising fuel prices. And Chelsea suffered their first loss at the English Premier League, going down to Tottenham. Barcelona and Atletico Madrid settled for a 1-1 draw at the Spanish La Liga. And those were our latest headlines. Our next English bulletin will air at 11 this morning. Stay with us for more news and entertainment on KTVSD. Good day.